This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee to talk about the Season 3 premiere of The Mandalorian. That's right, The Mandalorian is back, and we are very, very excited to break it down with all of you. Thank you for joining us for a cup of coffee. We've got two of our friends here with us, enjoying the coffee and refilling whenever we need them, because this is the kind of guys that they are. First, we're going to bring in the co-creator of Coffee with Kenobi, the award-winning designer, Mr. Cory Clubb.
Well, hello. I'm glad to be here. It's exciting to talk Mandalorian once again. I'm excited.
I mean, how could I not have the start of Mando without you, the number one Mando fan?
That's right. I redecorated my back room of my office. I've got the Mando helmet and all the posters and everything up there. And I'm in the season for the Mando. I'm ready to go.
This season, I honestly half believed that when you signed on, say that you were going to be wearing the helmet. I sort of expected it.
I thought about it. About it.
The audio would be a little tricky. Now, also joining us, he is no stranger to the world of Coffee with Kenobi or podcasting, the host of the wonderful Colby Cast, the charismatic Colby Mead. Colby, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'm so excited to be here, not only to talk about The Mandalorian, but to be with the number one Mandalorian fan, Cory Clubb. I'm beside myself. I'm so excited. Can't wait to get to it.
It's true. I don't know if he set up a mirror or what, but he's literally beside himself. It's quite impressive. All right, let's do what we've been doing. It's working out really well. We're going to give one word to describe the episode and overall reactions to it. Cory, let's start with you. And maybe before you even do that, just for fun, share your excitement level for this season.
Oh, thanks. I can't wait. Just coming off of, the interlude we had with Boba Fett, kind of the continuation of that story. Coming into this new season, it's almost kind of like anything's up for grabs. We don't know much about this, and we're really kind of dipping in to more of the lore, I think, of Mando. I know when we originally saw him for season 1, it was like, who is this guy? What's his background? What's going on? He was very mysterious. We got to know his travels and understand his relationship to discovering Grogu and all the adventures there. And so now I feel like we're really framing up a season really focused on his heritage and his past. So I'm excited to learn more about him, where he came from, and where his next adventures will take the crew there. So I know for me, my whole family watches this show. We are so excited to be able to jump on every Wednesday and check it out. And it is literally I love how Disney Plus has kind of brought that episode of the week or show of the week back. I really feel like that's really strong. It is. It's definitely makes it worth the wait. It really does. And it's exciting for us to digest, what happened this episode and what will happen next time. And then, think about theories or just like excitement, little things. And so I appreciate Disney Plus, doing this and making sure that, it's a spoonful each week along the way. So couldn't be more excited for it.
Love it. So give us your one word to describe the episode. By the way, it's chapter 17. It's called The Apostate.
Yeah, man. What overall thoughts, I guess, and then I'll see my word. I'm excited to jump back in this world. I know it's like we know kind of we've seen, Obi-Wan's show come out, and we saw Boba Fett do his show, and we kind of know those characters, the kind of like legacy characters. But Mando is really still that newer edge. I feel like I feel like that freshness to him. And so it feels like fresh Star Wars stories we're getting. And we're diving right back into this world of Mando and being all these great characters we met in the last season as well. And it's so much enjoyment to be able to do this. I just typed out the word here just to think through, it's just I put down wonderful. And it's kind of like excitement and happiness, but also it's wonder. And because I'm wondering what's going to happen next, and it's a good thing. It's a good feeling to have. I think overall they're kind of laying the groundwork for what's going to happen too in this episode. Exciting to see Grief Karga and how he's built up the world that we originally knew as kind of a desolate backwater area, and just growth there. And so we see a lot of growth in these characters through this episode, and then of course the adventures as well. So very exciting stuff. I'm excited to actually, I can't wait to the next episode.
Yes. Very good. Colby, what about you? Excitement level, and then one word for the episode, and then your overall thoughts on it.
Literally everything Cory just said, just copy and paste, right click. I felt like Wednesday morning Tuesday night when I went to bed, I had that Christmas Eve excitement about it. And I actually thought back to 2019 when Disney Plus was about to go live, when Mando was going to basically open the doors of the store. And that morning, waking up and not being able to get onto the service because it was crashing. There's so much overload, and being able to actually get that first episode downloaded, to your phone, because it allows you to do that, and then just keep on trying to get onto the service, and then finally having to watch it streaming from my phone onto my TV because I couldn't get it to stream. And that's how much demand there was. And I felt sort of similar to this Wednesday morning when this episode was coming out, because this show has really just taken the world by storm. It's just pumped life and energy into Star Wars, which really, honestly, it had a lot of life and energy before this anyway, but this has just sort of brought it into this new era. This is the flagship, Mando and Grogu. This is the flagship of the galaxy. So I was really, really waiting. I did a rewatch of the 2 seasons and the Book of Boba Fett. I did.
Nice.
I've been doing giveaways on the Colby Cast Instagram all month just to enjoy the lead up to it. And it's like, I felt like almost similar to how I feel when a Star Wars movie is coming out, the anticipation level. So this, on Wednesday morning when I started watching it, just had all those same similar feelings and was just super excited, and it didn't disappoint. The word I'm going to use is everything, because to me, this episode sort of had everything that Mando has brought, that Star Wars has, right? We had monsters. We had this fantastic dogfight in space. Can I say it? Can I just say it? Purgles. I mean, what? I literally sat up on my couch, loved that little scene with Grogu. We got the Anzellans, right, from Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. The music was fantastic. I love the themes that they're introducing already with belief, with, going forward versus going backwards, all things I'm sure we'll get into. But this episode had all of that. And if you compare it to the other first episodes of the other seasons, it's on the shorter end, but it still managed to accomplish so much. And as soon as it ended, I had that very familiar phrase in my mind. Is it Wednesday yet? Where's the next? I need another episode here. So mission accomplished. The Mando people have brought their A game again, and I can't wait for the next couple months.
Pretty good stuff. My build up is, I'll just sum it up for you in a quick little story. I'll just give it to you in a number. It's 4. Last night, I went to bed because Mason and I do our Mando mornings. We wake up super early. I get everything ready so that he and I can watch it and then jump in the car and go to school. That's always been the way. I don't see these in advance. I don't want it to be spoiled, so I wake up ridiculously early to watch it. So last night, I went to bed at 8:30, which is pretty great, actually. Kids, when you're younger, going to bed at 8:30 seems lame. When you're an adult with children, it's like paradise.
Yes.
Really. You'll see someday. So I woke up at 12:15, forced myself to go back to sleep. 1:30, forced myself to go back to sleep. 3 o'clock, forced myself to go back to sleep. And then 4:40, and then I just got up. I had like adrenaline. It happened to me Sunday night too. I kept waking up thinking about the Darksaber and the Mandalorian. Because really? like you said, Colby, all the new Star Wars stuff is fun. It's exciting, and I'm very much on the edge of my seat. But nothing is like Mando, except for the new movies. Like for me, I loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. Andor was great, but a different kind of great. Not one I would go back to over and over again. And because of my day job and being in charge of my curriculum, I have rewatched seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian probably 5 or 6 times. And I've done a lot of essay stuff with it. And I've read a lot of analytical stuff about it from my students and things that I've done. And so I feel really good about the lore and seeing it stretched out and extrapolated upon and building upon some great themes is just, it's like mother's milk, man. Maybe that's gross. I don't mean it to be. I mean, it's good. It nourishes you mind, body, and soul. That's gross too. It's really good. I really like it. I really liked it a lot. And my one word for this is redemptive, because that's the theme of the episode. Everybody's trying to get redemption. Grief Karga is. There's a bar that is now a school. He's changed his ways. The Mando one's pretty obvious. Bo-Katan is. IG-11 gets another chance.
Yeah.
A lot of great stuff. Grogu doesn't really get another chance to anything except just being insane.
Eat more food.
Ridiculously cute and wonderfully so. Using the Force in ways that we just only dream about in our most office space of areas. So it's great. This is called the Apostate, and if you didn't bother to look it up, an apostate is a person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle. He is labeled, and he was in the book of Boba Fett. Din Djarin was labeled an apostate. Again, a person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle. You want to look up similarities or synonyms to an apostate: dissenter, heretic, nonconformist, defector, deserter, and the last one, traitor. So that's pretty hardcore stuff, right? But I don't, there's a lot of things we can go with it. To me, this kind of breaks down into a couple of different sections. I think we've got the opening sequence until Din shows up. We've got Din and the armorer talking. We've got Din going to Navarro and talking with Grief Karga. And then we've got post that visit with the pirate scene and Bo-Katan. So I think that's how I think it would be fun to sort of break this one down. Just because I think there's key elements in all of that. I don't want to miss anything for this. So, Cory, let's start with you. Standout things from the opening scene and sequence.
Yeah, I think they did the definite bait and switch. I think we were expecting a lot of backstory on Mando, and it kicks it right off. I mean, we see the armor doing her thing. And
did we all think this was Din at first? I did.
Yeah, 100%.
Me too.
Yeah. Except his ethnicity didn't look like Pedro Pascal. He didn't look like he was Chilean.
I don't remember.
But other than that, I was like, well, is this him?
Did we see him in season 1 as a child?
Yeah, when the Mandalorian picks him up and out of that little bunker, and they play that guitar music.
Yeah.
And they carry him, and then he whisks off. Yeah,
that's the thing. I think we're all anticipating as fans, waiting for that payoff, right? And they right away they're like kind of showing us, oh, okay, here we go, and it's kind of. I was surprised when they did, that whole scene, which was really kind of on the edge of my seat. I didn't expect that right away. They're doing that little ritual there, and then the water, and then she kind of says, "Shh." I thought, oh, he didn't finish his sentence. Maybe he's not a full Mandalorian. Then, boom, this giant monster gator comes out of the water, and we were just like, okay, battle's on. And then we kind of all realized that, oh, Mando comes in and saves the day as N1 fighter, and it's just realized, oh, this is current times. And I kind of recounted a little bit. I was like, oh, have we seen the Coven or whatever you call that? It's just like, have we seen them kind of relocate? Because I guess I hadn't thought about that. I thought for some reason we were on Mandalore back in the day, right? And kind of living through that. So definite. I mean, I guess I'm gonna ask you guys too. Like, is that good storytelling to do the bait and switch thing where it makes you feel like one way, and then all of a sudden the rug's pulled out from underneath you, and it's something else?
Oh, I think so.
You like that?
I love it because if you're telling me right away, we know there are a lot of theorists out there, and you expect things to go one way, so we're gonna pull the rug out from under you and keep you on the edge of your seat.
Sure.
Just when you think you've seen it all, we're going to show you some more stuff. So I love that.
Good point.
I agree. It kept me off balance from the beginning. Even the Lucasfilm logo reveal, and then the droid helmets, and it wasn't the same. The music was absent, and you heard noises like armor type noises, and right off the bat, I was drawn right in, really intrigued. And I had the similar thoughts to, is this a flashback? Are we seeing maybe I've been watching The Last of Us, so they do a lot of that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
I sort of have that in my brain. Like, are we getting some backstory here to start off? So I was immediately off balance, but I was surprised and I enjoyed it. And then when that big monster, that big alligator turtle thing came out of the water, I just thought it was so exciting. And you mentioned, Din arriving to save the day. It's almost like, it's like a Western where he's riding in on his horse and he's saving this group of people who are literally I just kept on asking myself, why aren't you running? Clearly these
are flying.
These things or fly away.
Yeah.
Some of them did, but like, just get out of there. But yeah, such an interesting way to start the episode and very exciting.
So I love the opening. I think it would be sort of funny if we ever go back to that plan again, that everybody has like new alligator handbags. No, I think this is, I thought about this opening quite a bit. I love the bait and switch. I even said, no way. And Mason goes, what? I said, they're building Din Djarin's helmet. Yeah. I'm like, no, wait, that's blue. And then you see the kid and you're like, well, I thought it was. And then when the armor holds her hands up and that wonderful gator thing jumps out of the water, I think the whole thing is a perfect metaphor. Because all of these children of the Watch are standing on the brink of water, which is redemptive in itself and renewal. And it's a very Christian image, isn't it? Like they're standing in the water. It's like a baptism. I mean, I think whether you are Christian or not, that's a baptismal symbol or meaning or a ritual. And this larger than life creature jumps out of the water, wrecking this spiritual ceremony. Din Djarin says in the second episode, The Child of season 1, I can't get rid of my weapons. They're part of my religion. Yeah. But then they say, we found out later, no, it's not actually a religion. It's a creed. Well, guess what? And maybe it's a little bit of both. And this natural predator jumps out of the water and tries to kill all of them. And instead of running away or flying away, like you both astutely mentioned, they stay and they fight it. Their pride gets in the way of these insurmountable obstacles, and they refuse to give up, which is appealing to a degree. But is it the smartest thing to do? I think it's a wonderful metaphor for why the Watch doesn't last, because they don't know when to quit. They don't know when to abandon their way of thinking. And I think whether John and Dave meant to do this, that's how I took it, and I thought it was really wonderful. And then that little whistling noise, all of a sudden, here comes Din on his H-1 Starfighter and zipping in there, and I'm like, what a great, understated but powerful entrance. It was just that's what you want. We've seen him coming through these partitions with a Darksaber and fighting those weird butcher things or everything that he has done. But right in like this on this beautiful silver thing, like the horse and the Lone Ranger, was just a masterstroke. So I absolutely loved this opening.
So I have a quick question. We're kind of getting into the next scene, I know, but the whole reason for this journey he's going to go on is to kind of redeem himself. But here we are in the very first scene that we're in these waters that they're using to christen the next Mandalorian. Why not use those waters to rechristen
right?
Djarin
That's
himself?
another example that I'm talking about. Like,
why does he have to go to great lengths to make that happen?
This is okay because they're so. This is why Palpatine didn't like the Jedi, because they're dogmatic views. Like they can't pivot. They can't think of an alternative way to adapt to the world because their old ways abandon them. And Bo-Katan quite adamantly. Yeah. It was great when I got the chance to talk with Katie Sackhoff. She mentioned to one of the other Star Wars podcasts, I think it was Sky Talkers, I'm not entirely sure. But she mentioned that she looks at Din Djarin as a nuisance or an irritant. Those were Katie Sackhoff's words. Because of him getting in the way of her plan. And I just really like that. It's how they rub each other the wrong way. Do you just want to jump? Do you want to talk about the opening, or do you want to jump into her conversation with Din? Because I think there's a lot of rich stuff there.
the word when Cory, when you asked that question and Dan, you used it, the word I had in my brain was dogma. They're stuck in their ways. They're rigid in their beliefs, and there's no, like you said, Dan, no pivoting. There's no adjustment. There's no flexibility. This is the way. It's not. This is one of the ways. This is the way, right? And the way. And I would love to just jump right into the Bo-Katan thing, because you referenced the interview that was on the same show as your interview with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and some of their answers. I mean, every time I hear those guys speak, I'm just enthralled. But he brought up, I think it was Favreau, maybe Filoni. They're almost like two sides of the same brain, right? Don't you think?
Yes,
and it's a very
together,
very genius brain. But they talked about belief and how Bo-Katan, she ridicules Din Djarin for the helmet belief, right? But then at the same time, she's practicing the same belief with the Darksaber, thinking that, oh, I need that Darksaber to lead the people, when all that is an object. It's just a creed. It's a dogma. And I just find that aspect of the show so fascinating. I can't wait to see more of it.
She calls him a fool. Yeah. But then she does the same thing. But the problem is that what we are told as an audience is that everyone leaves her because she doesn't have the Darksaber, and that they all have run off to be mercenaries. Basically, she says forces melted away without the Darksaber, making their way across the galaxy as mercenaries. So they're both foolish, depending on your own point of view. But everyone who was so loyal to her, apparently are they only loyal to the symbol of an object. So again, this pride stuff is like, talk about a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah. Well, look at what it's brought, right? Look at what it's brought. It's nothing but division and failure. I mean, the entire race of people. Yeah, it's just not united. Sorry, Cory, I think I stepped on your foot.
No, I was just gonna say, that almost kind of the same deal. The idea of, one way of living, like I said, this is the way, and this is the way we're going to do things in this coven or this group. But then Bo-Katan has a different thought of that. Like, I'm going to rule without a helmet and do other things and do my way of life. I'm going to be the quote savior, if you will, and save the rest of the group. You'll see. I'll show you. Kind of thing. Like that boldness, that ego gets in the way. Again, you mentioned them fighting the giant monster at the beginning. They all kind of seem to have this this nature of they're not going to back down. And I got thinking about that a little bit too, because the preview they put in was it the bombing of Mandalore and destroying of that planet
from the Book of Boba Fett,
Book of Boba Fett. And so I thought through, like, are they afraid that they can't run away or back off to fight another day because they know they've been defeated, don't want to be defeated again, and that's where that comes into play? Or is there something else? It's really interesting to see that. And it's funny, I think I've got a bumper sticker, or it's on the back of my car. It says "This is the way" from season 1. It just has and I always think, like, I'm driving around, people seeing that, they're going, "This guy doesn't know where he's going. He's not the way," And I think, like, it's just like you have this. It's a fun way to say it, but also it means so much more now in season 3, doesn't it? Is from this first episode. It's so interesting that they've utilized that.
It's fun and fascinating. Now, I don't think they're afraid of losing again. I think they don't know when to quit.
Yeah,
they don't know when to regroup. If you guys are okay with that, I want to go back to the beginning. I want to talk about, he walks into this little cave area, and here is the armor again, doing her thing. She's constantly foraging and creating weapons and armor and leading this group of followers of the way. Apparently, it's very easy to move that giant table around.
Yeah, that's right. And that furnace and
mythosaur skull on the wall, which I really like a lot. But this is what we learned. So she gets mad at him. I mean, to me, if it's such a crime that he's taken off his helmet, and it's like the ultimate disrespect, apparently. But they're not attacking him. They're not threatening his, his warriorness, so to speak. And she says, the worst thing is that you removed it of your own free will. It's not like in combat somebody ripped off your helmet. I mean, that's like a classic thing going back thousands of years. If you defame a warrior, rip off their armor or something like that, it's like the ultimate disrespect. But he did it of his own volition. Now, he's never really gotten a chance to explain that, or maybe he just doesn't bother because he knows it's not going to matter because, again, they're so inflexible in their point of view. But he has this green shard, and if you look inside it, there's like a piece of like a manuscript or like from a tomb or just some sort of writing. And she says, the Mandalorian surface is crystallized by fusion rays. But then he says, well, I don't think it's poisoned because otherwise, where did this come from? A traveler gave it to me. So who's the traveler? We don't know. We don't know. And I'm not going to speculate, but I think it's interesting. So what he's been asked to do, he has to prove that he's going to bathe in the living waters, which are beneath the mines of Mandalore. And by creed, the decree of exile, I believe is what it says, it's going to be lifted, and then he is actually redeemed. Armor thinks about it and says, this is the way.
So
that's the new mission.
Can I pause you there?
Please.
It's interesting because she's almost undermining her own beliefs, right?
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, I'll give you this one-off," and I got thinking about that a little bit. I was like, "Well, you've just kind of given him an out, or given a chance to come back, which is good. I think it shows growth." But also I think, why did she even let him into this den? Why did, I feel like she wants him. I mean, she doesn't want to be around him. She wants, be gone type thing. You're now apostate, right? So she calls him that. She's the one that, like you mentioned, that you had a great definition of that. I hadn't even thought through that. He's a wanderer. He's disillusioned or whatever. That's what their Coven, I assume, believes. But he's kind of proven himself as, hey, I kind of saved your guys' butts back there, like with my riding into my stallion, and you kind of owe me this conversation. So I feel like that's the framework for that. And then, like you said, they look at this crystal, and then also it's like she's kind of changing her ways, or I guess the way of how that's going to be. And I wonder how often that does happen. So I find it interesting that, like, maybe I was going back to my thought about the lake right out there outside the cave, and I thought, can I just walk out there and just like re-up? Like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I feel like you got no. We want to go out there. And she was even saying like, oh, it's poison. You can't go there. Like, there's no way. It's like, well, I can prove it to you.
It's like I've got to go to the River Jordan and be in the exact
something like that. Yeah, there's definitely some mythos behind that, and I think that she wants to believe that as well, right? She's like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to set you on this mission and prove it to me. Yeah, if you can do this for me or us or your covenant or your kind, you can be granted, access again to us. So it's really interesting. It really is in that first, like, I don't know, 20 minutes ish. Well, less than that even. That we get so much.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Cory, another thing that you just brought up is another example of their literal interpretation of their rules rather than symbolic, right? Because if it was a symbolic approach to their beliefs, then you just walk them outside the cave and you do your ritual there in the same water that the young boy was just getting his, taking his creed. But because they are so dogmatic and literal in their beliefs, that it has to be in the waters of Mandalorian. But I wanted to stop and appreciate Emily Swallow's performance always, right? Number one, because her vote, we've never seen her face, and yet her voice conveys, and especially in that one line where she said, "This is the way." I don't know if you guys heard it the way I heard it, but it was almost like a softer, "This is the way."
Oh yeah,
like
it was like all encouraging.
Yeah. Rather than in previous iterations of that, it's always a very stern, a very, harsh, not harsh, but very
stoic
focused
and emotional.
Stoic, yeah.
It's like saying I'm Groot, right? In different inflections. It really is to some degree. And I really am glad you brought that up because I had thought that when I heard that, and that's a really astute way to see that. I'm glad you brought that up. So
I honestly think if the armorer were honest with herself and she had a sincere moment of reflection, I think she would say in her heart of hearts, I want Din Djarin to succeed. I'm giving him these chances over and over again. I am like the carrier of this belief system. This creed is my blood. It's my oxygen. It's my everything. But she can't help but be impressed by. I mean, you remember her tone when, do you know what that weapon is when he has the Darksaber? I really think that she wants him to succeed. And at first I was concerned that this season would be about her alienating him. I'm not seeing that yet. And Emily Swallow's tone is a good indicator of that. So he's got his new mission. Anything you want to say about this opening sequence before we move on?
Good.
No? All right, let's do it. Well, you mentioned Purgils. If this wasn't the absolute highlight of the episode for me, it's 1A. I love Rebels, and people who have heard me babble on about Star Wars know how much I love Rebels. And seeing Purgils in live action, albeit just a silhouette of them, it's hard not to think about the fact that we know Ahsoka's around the corner-ish, and that is what we've been led to believe is going to be showing her hunting for Ezra. And Ezra and Thrawn left on those Purgils, right? I'm not saying those are the Purgils, but just knowing that we're there, and of course Grogu can connect with him or be moved by their presence because they're highly force-sensitive beings, and Grogu is clearly very highly force-sensitive.
He's a magnet.
It was absolutely wonderful, and then in adorable but less wonderful because I'm just a Purgo guy, is he goes down that little tube, and all of a sudden he's sitting on Mando's lap, and he kind of takes like the weaponry and he makes it like his little seatbelt. I mean, how cute is that?
Yeah.
Grogu is insanely cute, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I mean, it's so cute. It's like cuter than hearing a bug sneeze. It's just the best.
It's true. I'm glad you brought up the force whales because that is something is really interesting. I guess I had kind of forgotten that this is, with Ahsoka series coming up, and there's been teasers all over the place. All kinds of stuff can happen. So I'm not gonna necessarily talk about that a ton, but like it's just cool to see how much these are connecting stories throughout Star Wars, and it just gleams back on itself, and it's so cool. And I was my son goes, "Oh, that's right, Ezra. I forgot." Yeah, it's like almost like. I'm going to go watch Rebels again. I want to go experience that again. So it's really cool to see them, mirror that. And also, I thought like, are they swimming Are they swimming? Do they swim in space? I guess you swim through the Force not the Force. The light speed lanes. So I feel like they're the ones like taking the on ramp. I guess I don't know how to say it, but like I feel like. It's interesting because there's almost a whole other path around the galaxy via these species or these whales, and that's really cool. I find that really interesting aspect, and they've just blossomed so many different things in Star Wars that I tend to forget, and I'm so glad that they have just great storytelling, I think, and how much they care for this series and definitely this franchise.
Love it.
I was so thrilled when he's, I love seeing the hyperspace lanes anyway, because I just think they're so cool with the swirling blue and light, and it's so neat. Visually, they're so beautiful. And then, you're seeing that in the glass reflected on his little dome, his cool little seat, the little child seat that he has. And he's just looking up, and they're making this puppet have such wonder in his eyes. And it's just a magnificent thing they do with him every single time he's on screen. But then we see these Purgils, and I geeked out, right? I already referenced it. But then shortly after that, I thought to myself, I thought of something that Kathleen Kennedy said a year or so ago. And she referenced that Star Wars characters are designed to be recognized by their silhouette, right? If you think over the course from the beginning, you can recognize characters just by seeing their silhouette. And the Purgils are the same way, because immediately, as soon as I saw that, you didn't see any defining features. I mean, of course, you saw the tails and the sort of the rounded front, but we didn't see any details. But the minute, if you've seen Rebels, you knew exactly what you were looking at. And the ramifications of just that simple scene is, it's so, it blows your mind.
There's a lot. There's a lot there. So he lands on Navarro. The opening to Navarro is great. There's like this sound of this welcoming droid or some sort of it sounds like a female voice, talking about what I forget the exact term, something like
It's kind of welcoming him to Navarro, right? I mean, I feel
yes,
like it's like you're pulling into Disney's parking lot, and you're getting all the
exactly.
vibes, right? Like we didn't have that before. Previously, it was
Yes.
like you didn't have the nice little chime. You just landed wherever, and
So it's like
hopefully
the pride of the Outer Rim or
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
something like that. He lands.
Right. Yep.
There's the IG-11 statue was great. And at the opening, they showed the flashback of IG-11 sacrificing himself in that fiery lake or stream or whatever it is on Navarro at the end of chapter 8 of season 1. And so that made me happy. And I'm like, oh, and then you learn, first of all, High Magistrate Grief Card comes out. I love this character.
High Magistrate.
Yeah.
High Magistrate.
So he's all like, every time we see him, he's get a little more fancy, but you can tell that Mace even says to me, Dad, this planet looks so much different. I mean, it was very bright.
Yep.
It was beautiful. You've got all the quacking monkey lizards happy up on that little thing. No one's roasting them. Everything is clean. It's just really, really cool. And then these pirates show up. First of all, I think it's cool that Grief Karga says, like, why don't you retire here? Here's this plot of land. You've done your thing. But I love that he respects that the Mandalorian has his own way of doing things. He doesn't flat out ignore him. But I think this perfectly typifies it. Your little friend or whatever. And then he says, Grogu. He says, what? He says, his name is Grogu. And he says, yeah, if you say so. And it wasn't rude, but like to him, that was as much as he's going to give that acknowledgement. It was just a great little character moment. I loved it. It shows the respect that they have for each other, but also they're very much individuals.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a great opening to see these characters see them meet up again, and they have a kind of budding friendship. Because I do think back to the season 1 where they were kind of not really nice to each other. Like he would give them jobs, and he was like, "Well, just take what you can get," type thing. And it was just they're trying to get their way in the world.
Trying
and
to kill
each
other. There's that.
Yeah, there were a couple
He
times.
shot him. Yeah,
that's right. I forgot about that. And so it's like I feel like they've really understood each other and come to an understanding. Like I said, Griff Karga has definitely made a whole life for himself by being the High Magistrate. And Carl Weathers does such a great job. I mean, you could just tell he's just enjoying himself so much. And I got to say, his little add-ons to his cape with the little droids, the carpet droids or whatever they were, that was great. So I'm clumped down the stairs.
In America.
Love it. Yeah, it's. I think that's just those little things are so cool. I think it's so much fun. Again, I also like I said, Carl Weathers having such a great time doing this, but also we get to see him kind of go up against those pirates. He hasn't lost his edge too. I really liked that a lot too. I appreciate the fact that he's just not some lazy, fat off the land type dude. Like he was kind of preaching at the Mando, like, dude, like go take a load off, and kind of offers him the sheriff job, and they kind of catch up, and like it's really like it's got to be tempting for Mando, right? He's got 2 paths now. He can go do this, Mandalore thing and figure that out, or he can stay here and not worry about that. What does he want to do? And again, I think maybe that comes back to that ego or that pride or that boldness that Mandalorians have, and he's trying to figure that out for himself. What does he believe? And I guess we go further into that scene with Bo-Katan, and so it's like I still think he's trying to figure out himself, and I think that's really cool. Even when a friend comes alongside and offers him a great opportunity.
See, I like your perspective. I find he's the only character that totally knows himself. I don't think he's trying to figure anything out. He wants to get redeemed in those waters because that's what he's raised with. And I was thinking about that. Why would he still feel that way if he's already kind of grown and changed and he's a dad now? And Grogu has made his choice. He's not going to be a Jedi. So why does he still want to do that?
He's got responsibilities, I think it's because, right?
Exactly. And it's like, no matter how much you grow or how far away you move from where you were raised or whatever choices you make, you still can't. How you were raised doesn't just go away. It just doesn't go away. So it makes sense that that's kind of a default for him. And we see it as a weakness because we're like, you got everything, buddy. But we're not him. And we don't know, like, maybe he wants to be redeemed so we can do something different. I don't know that, but I love that he acknowledges the offers, and or he could be the marshal. He'd be a great marshal. We are going to talk about that here in a second. But I just really think it's just he's just a cool. He's complex. I mean, he's not super complex. Nobody in Star Wars is super complex, if you're being completely honest. But he's fascinating in his own way. Let's talk about. I love how they handled Cara Dune. So you land on Navarro. You're expecting to see Cara Dune. She's a great character. Obviously, there were a lot of extenuating circumstances that we won't dive into here because that's not what Coffee with Kenobi does. But I like the fact that Gina Carano or not, they haven't recasted Cara Dune, at least at the time of this recording. What we learn is he says, you've got a marshal. And we know that Cara Dune is a very formidable and very accomplished fighter and protector, very much a protector. We learned that she was recruited by Special Forces after they bring in Moff Gideon, who, by the way, was sent off to New Republic War Tribe.
He was kind of squirreled away too, right?
Razor, yeah, but we know he's going to be around. Cara Dune is not, and I liked that they handled it the way they did. I like that she wasn't killed off or just not acknowledged. I think that would have been a great tragedy. So it's cool that at least his character still exists. But is off doing her own thing. I really like how they handled that.
I think it's very efficient storytelling. You're right. It's just taking care of dialogue. It would be anti-intellectual, if you want to call it that, if they weren't to address her at all. Because, like you said, last time he was on Navarro, Cara Dune was there, right, and so was Greef Karga. So that place is tied to her, and at the same time, you have to address the whole situation. And they did it with a line of dialogue. And then they moved right on to Moff Gideon. And I even loved did you catch Din's body language when Greef Karga says, oh, he's in a war tribunal. And he just sort of he does the whole shrug like, oh yeah, that's a waste of time. Right. So I just love the efficiency of the storytelling that we get with the show. Just so smart.
Yeah. I will say I agree with you guys in the sense of, in good story writing and storytelling, characters, are the blood life of those advancing stories, and they come and go. I mean, it's up to the writers to manipulate that and carry on a good story. And I think they handled it very well. Like you said, you don't want to alienate anybody fan wise, but also I think don't take out the easy way, right? I feel like the easy way would have been like, oh, she's dead or blew up or whatever, right? You're leaving that path open. So, hey, maybe we do bring her back season 4. Maybe we do bring her back eventually. And you mentioned, oh gosh, I forgot his name now. The bad guy,
Moff Gideon.
Moff Gideon, thank you. I was like, he was kind of in the same vein of like, well, we don't know. It's up in the air type thing. So. I feel like that's also an open road to say like anything can happen. And so back to what, originally they pulled a rug underneath us. I think they can do anything now. It's like they're keeping those doors open in the sense of the fact that, they control this universe and we're here for the ride for what we're going to be shown. So.
I wanted to mention, if we're going to be moving on, I just wanted to bring up two things about Navarro, that whole scene. Well, before the next one we get to, it was one about Din and just the arc that he's on that you guys were mentioning. And I feel like he's complex because he has this dogmatic creed about his religion, his helmet, but then at the same time, his personal beliefs, he's able to be flexible. So he's rigid in one sense, but he's flexible in another. Yeah. And I thought it was magnificent the way they've shown that to us, because the droid that he had the biggest problem with from the beginning, he's now going back to and wants on his side. He wants it back. That's and true. It's just
speaking of redemptive.
Exactly. And then the other thing was Greef Karga. And just a small note, you guys were talking about how he still carries that blaster. He's gone legit, but he's still got that power behind him. I loved the little detail that he shot the blaster out of the pirate's hand.
Right.
He could have shot him anywhere, but he's got the skills and the will to shoot him in a non-lethal place for a purpose. And I also just like that they just don't kill things left and right. His whole crew got wiped out, but that's one thing. but Greef, when he had the guy's life in his hands, he shot that blaster out of his hand for a purpose, right? Go back and tell your boss that we don't play like that anymore. So
it reminds me of the Bad Batch whenever they fire upon clones, they use stun.
Yeah.
That's
the
the first
stun,
thing,
yeah.
one of the first things I thought. Yeah, and that's
It's
the choice,
humane.
right?
Yeah.
This is a cold-blooded
Yep.
guy who was in charge of the bounty hunter guild and took life for profit, which is even acknowledged by this pirate. Vane is his name, Vane. Kind of a nice play on words of being a vain person.
Well, he mentions, you know who you report to or used to report to. So a little thread there too to pick up on. We don't know if that's going to come into play either, but
it sort of is at the end because that's Pirate King Gorian Shard.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I have a note here about that. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, who's got this wonderful seaweed beard.
The first crossover between Star Wars and comic books. He's Swamp Thing.
Black Crusade might have something to say about that, but yes, you're right. Yeah, so I like that notion too of like he keeps saying he sticks to his guns. Not really, but whatever. This is a school. No, this is a bar. I'm gonna go in there and makes a little joke. Oh, no wonder they wouldn't let me in. It's a school. Ha ha ha. You know, the idea of education versus being ignorance and rejection because you're not smart, but this is a choice that this pirate has made. And later he and his crew made Mandalorian at his finest, which was pretty great. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about the return of the Anzellan species, some more detail on IG-11, and more with Bo-Katan. I'm Dan Zare, and this is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
We're back. We're talking about the Apostate, chapter 17 of season 3 of The Mandalorian. Gosh, it's good to have it back. Good to be back with all of you, Colby and Cory. Just got a refill, so we're ready to move on to the second half of this episode. We didn't talk about the IG-11 return. He was destroyed, of course, in chapter 8 of the first season. And I didn't think he was coming back.
Yeah.
I would have been fine with him not coming back because I believe when you're dead in stories, unless that you should stay dead. The Uncle Ben example being the prime example of that. But they've got a new idea here. They're going to get some power to him. Mando wants protection, a droid that he trusts, which is, used to be kind of a unique idea. I believe Colby, was it you, Colby, that mentioned the idea of it's kind of a cool redemption thing, or was that you, Cory? I can't remember.
No, it was Colby. About how from the beginning he didn't trust droids, and now he wants to go back and get the one he trusts the least. Yes,
and now it's obviously that's not true. So I guess I want to know, what do you like this sort of angle? And I also think we should talk about that scene quickly because it's like a horror movie. IG-11 comeback, pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it. I agree with you. I didn't expect him to come back. I was kind of surprised they showed that in the preview, from previous seasons of into this new season. They kind of singled in on IG-11, and I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then he shows up as a statue, and even Grief Karga's like, he's just a statue, right? Like, it's not, you can't take him with you. Like, I thought it was kind of a funny little
part of him.
Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
it
And
looks like it's made of chocolate.
Yes, it does look. It does, but he looks very happy. He just does his he's cutting his arm up, and he looks like he's ready to go. And they kind of bring him in and fix him up. And I thought, does Mandalorian? I mean, that dude's like a jack of all trades. Like, he has got it figured out. Like, he built his N1 fighter, I guess, but I just he's just a man that knows it all. He can't be stopped, and I think we'll learn that. I think even more still, his skill sets. He even mentions it to Grogu about knowing how to get around the galaxy. And so, they try to piece them back together. And I fully expected to pop back on and okay, let's move on with our mission. And no, it was like I said, a horror scene is a good way to say it. Mm-hmm. And some comedy in there too, But I thought, okay, we just went from one scene where they just gunned down a whole crew of bad guys or pirates to this scene where they're like, pass Grogu back and forth like a hot potato and don't know what to do. I was like, you guys, come on. You literally just fired down I don't know if he's just more tough than he looks like IG-11 or not, but kind of a fun little push on the head there, and the smart aleck comment of "nice job using your head" or something like that, or
That was good.
yeah.
I like that.
So it was
That's a
fun.
good
It was a
dad
fun
joke,
moment.
and
It
he
was
is a dad.
definitely interesting. That's one thing I will say is overall, and it popped in my head, but this does have a lot of fun moments. It does have that lightness to it that I get
Fun.
from Mandalorian, and also has the dark moments too. I think there's a good balance for kind of everybody to take in the sense of family members and whatnot. So I did enjoy the scene. It was fun, a little unrealistic, but fun.
I'm okay with the idea of bringing him back. I'll admit that I did sort of think for a moment, well, what does that do to the sacrifice that he made, right? And but then you think, well, he's a robot. He's a droid.
Yeah.
He's made up of, right?
Yeah.
And that was a beautiful moment. I don't think this undoes any of that.
I don't know.
And then the other side of that is, whatever, if he gets IG-11 up and running again, it could be like IG-11 3.0, right? We've already had one version, and then Quill made a second version, and who knows what we may end up with at the end of this process. And I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that, because it may be a completely new perspective on IG-11. So bring it on. And then that scene I thought was really cool, because he's crawling around like you remember the Terminators when they would get
Exactly.
would get cut in half, and they're still
true.
going. And I am a big fan of puns. So anytime you can work in, some Dan, you called it a dad joke. As soon as that droid pushed that bust over on him, and I was waiting for him to say that. Like, come, please, someone say that's using your head. And then Dan came through for me. So yes, 2 thumbs up for that whole scenario.
If I don't have dad jokes, I like half the things I say in class are eliminated on a daily basis. So it's a memory circuit is shot. That's why he defaults to his base programming. So yeah, I agree. It'd be kind of cool if the new chip was just a completely different. I don't know what the direction they would go, but it's cool. I like I said, I'm not ready to cast my official judgment. I love this character anyway. I'm not a person that needs everybody back. I don't need more stories of everything.
Right.
I don't need think every character needs 55 different narratives. But it's a fun idea. We'll sort of see how it goes. The Anzel thing, I like Babu Frick is cute. I've never really cared about Babu Frick. I thought it was just kind of a way to sell a couple of toys or puppets. But No Squeeze Bad Baby was so delightful and so funny. Mason was howling with delight.
Yes.
We were laughing so hard. Just seeing that with him was worth the price of admission. That was an absolute ball. And him talking to Mando, and then Grief Karga crouching down trying to translate when Mando understood it all, and like sitting there like crisscross applesauce, and said that was great. That was just fun.
My son said, well, how'd they get IG-11 in there? That little mouse hole, like there's almost like
how did Mando
comedy
get in there?
aspect. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, but the Grief Karga's outside looking in. It's like there's a lot of comedy angles to
Marvelous.
this that like are really funny, and they kind of ham it up too, don't they? I think that's the best part about this.
I like
Dan,
that
I
little
respect-
tiny pec muscles.
I respect your opinion on Babu Frick, and I totally get it, but I got to tell you, buddy, you're wrong. We need a Disney Plus series with Anzellans. I don't care if it's
14 seasons.
animated. I just need to hear like 22 minutes of those idiots talking. I absolutely love it. They crack me up, and I was so thrilled when Grogu just wraps up on one. He's just giving him a hug.
No Squeeze, Bad Baby. Bad Baby.
I wrote that down too. No
Same.
Squeezy. No squeeze.
That's great. That scene had more heart than all of The Rise of Skywalker combined. It's not a slam. It's just facts, man. Just
That's
facts.
hilarious. That's really funny.
Yeah, that was Star Wars comedy at its best.
It was delightful. So then we've got our pirate ambush. We get a quick scene of this pirate.
Yeah.
Who's got. I actually talked to Ed Dulles today of the Indie Cast, because he's a big pirate guy.
Oh, excellent.
And we were talking about that character, which was really, really fun. His name is a pirate king named Gorian Shard. That vessel that he's flying is great. I love that he's a pirate king, and the reason I like it, in a classic Shakespearean tale, many of the villains, many of Shakespeare's audiences love pirate kings, not just pirates, but pirate kings. So this is a very classic archetypal idea of just like a mustache twitching ne'er-do-well. So that was a fun literary angle that I had not expected. I don't really have much to say about that fight sequence other than it was cool, and I liked that he used speed to get away instead of trying to take them all out. Probably it would have been more beneficial to do it, but as we've established, Mando's not a murderer. Even though his crew tried to kill him, he's got more important things to do. So he's going to go visit. He's going to go visit Bo-Katan.
Yeah, I want to say one thing about that part. He'll be back. I have a feeling in my gut he'll be back, and he's made some extra enemies. Now, what will these parts do now to Navarro? Like, I feel like he's stirred up a little bee's nest there. So I definitely think that they're come back around, and because that's the thing too. Those characters look great on the screen. The Pirate King. I thought what great practical effects. They're just like churning this stuff out. It's the bread and butter, man. I think love the look. I can't wait to see if there's going to be like an action figure or something like that, and how they'll kind of cross that over. I mean, they've done such a good job with that, even with Mando or with Boba Fett's series too. Just these hulking characters that you can just tell are from Star Wars. I think that's the best part about this. You see these characters, you go, "Yep, that's something from Star Wars," and I can see it walking, around Disney World on Batuu or something, Yep. So definitely very cool.
I thought the whole space dogfight scene was just really exciting and really, really well done. And that's one thing I think that has sort of been missing from The Mandalorian is we just haven't had a ton of, those types of scenes. Because, I mean, how cool can just chasing people around in an empty vacuum of space be? But you put in an asteroid field, all of a sudden it becomes super cool. I think of like Attack of the Clones and Obi-Wan with Jango Fett, right? And their use of the music I thought was especially good here, because I don't even know what to call this. It happened in the beginning, in the first scene when Mando arrived to help with the big monster, and it happened 2 or 3 times during this dogfight, where when he's popping out behind these asteroids, they have like this quick Mando theme that they play with it, and it's just so cool. It's almost like it's like the Old West. Like a hero has his theme. So whenever he pops out and takes out one ship, they play it real quick, and then he hides again, and then he pops out and they play it real quick again. I just think, like the Pedro Apocalypse is in full swing now, and he's just a rock star, right? Mando is just a rock star. He even has his own theme. So a very cool action scene, and I love that super cool sublight thrusters thing that he has on that N1. We got to see it in the Boba Fett episode, and then again in this one, he just flips that switch and gone. Cool.
It's awesome. Done. If you're interested in more about the M1 Starfighter, there's a great article on StarWars.com all about it, by the way. Yep, that I wrote.
I was going to say, who wrote that?
Yes. Yeah.
Very good.
Awesome. So let's talk about the end. We already talked about sort of the paradox that is Bo-Katan calling him a fool, but sticking very sternly. I mean, she's clearly like,
she's over it.
She's lost. She's broken. She's got anger, but she doesn't seem to have a lot of fight in her because she's not fighting for it. She needs a darksaber. She's not going to try to fight Din Djarin. Does she think she can even beat Din Djarin?
That's what I was thinking.
Good question.
That too. Yeah. She so interesting enough to me. I love Kay Sackhoff. She is fantastic. She's one of my favorite.
She's great.
It's space heroes. A lot of space movies she's in, but I want to capture the moment where he does fly and he points out and goes, "Yep, that's Mandalorian Castle," or whatever he says, something like that. And I thought, if my son was like, okay, just come out and say it, I guess. Like, we don't have to even think about it. Like, we're kind of like, wonder what that is. Oh, we're just going to tell you right away. We don't care. And like, to your point about the armor, like, she's just moving here. Like, how did this come to be? Like, it's just really interesting that.
Yeah, take that. That looks better than Mandalore.
Yeah, that's right. And then she's, like you said, she's alone, which, man, these hallways and the lighting and these giant, like, almost window-ish type things are just like, it looks like she's in a cathedral or something. It looks really beautiful, and she's on this giant throne, and she's kind of got her legs propped up, and she's kind of like cocky and like looking like she's like, oh, now who's coming to see me? Who needs me now? Now, for something. I felt like that was her posture. She's definitely giving off the vibe of like, I'm kind of too good, too cool for school type thing, and that tells me like that's just where she kind of sits. That's her creed. That's her her credence. But she is. I think you guys brought up a good thing that I hadn't thought of. She's missing something. There's something she's missing. And I don't know what that is yet. We'll find out more. But maybe it's that relationship aspect of Mando and Grogu. And she's longing for that, but she doesn't know how to get it back. She only knows how to get the Darksaber and go through that deal and figure that out. But then, like you said, maybe she's afraid to face him. I don't know.
Can I add that I sort of got like she's depressed vibes. Like she doesn't care. She's
right.
And what I think, Cory, what you're talking about to me is that she lacks purpose now. She doesn't have a direction because of this whole Darksaber thing, and her crew abandons her. And I'm excited to see if, and I don't swim in the speculation waters either, but sometimes I'll get my toes wet a little bit. But I'm excited
those alligators
off some
in that water.
Be careful there.
Alligator turtles are coming after you. Right. I'm excited to see if we get some kind of Din brings her purpose back type of relationship, because they started out. There's a mutual admiration and respect going back to season 2, but then by the end of that, it's more antagonistic, right? Because he has what she wanted. Well, now, Dan, I think you're right. She sort of resigned, like, I'm not getting this back from him. So will he bring some kind of purpose to her? Because it was sort of a bummer to see her looking like that. Bo-Katan has a great history in Star Wars, and she's charismatic and she's strong and she's a leader, but now she has nobody following her. And it was sort of sad to see. And can I say one more point about that? Can he please learn to close his doors? It was raining, and he just left the hatch open. He would always do that with the Razor Crest, and it just I don't know. Maybe it's my little OCD going. He needs to learn to close the doors of his ships. There you go.
I don't think that's a little OCD. I think that's right on OCD. That's great. No, so here's what we learned from this sequence. I think we learned that, in her point of view, and this may be accurate, it probably is, forces, the cult gave up on Mandalore long before the purge, so she still blames Children of the Watch. She says they fractured and shattered her people, but it seems like there was a lot of fractured, sort of, we learned from Star Wars Rebels anyway. The mines below, the reason the mines are sacred and why you can't use other waters is because these mines supplied Beskar to their people. So it's almost like they believe Beskar from these sacred waters is almost sacred in and of itself. That's just my assumption. I'm connecting some dots here. Defined it as the mines between the Civic Center and the city of Sundari.
Yeah.
Those are the details that we learn about the plot. I don't get at all that that she feels superior. I get that she is like a depressed teenager. That's how she's acting. She's acting all depressed. Like you both said, she's got no purpose now. She doesn't have fight in her to be mad at herself and blame everybody else. She's not taking any responsibility for her actions. And maybe they'll bring into the fact that her sister was murdered by Maul and Obi-Wan, and maybe she still blames herself for some of that. I don't know. That's never come up. It wouldn't surprise me if there was somewhere below the surface. Katie Sackhoff in our roundtables did talk about that very briefly, which was cool, after being asked about it, prompted by it. I think the thing that's the most important here is that when he leaves, and listen to it again, the last piece of dialogue is she says, "Goodbye, Din Djarin," without any affection, without any kindness, with kind of like if she could spit out his name, I think she would. I think that I don't think it has to do with him. I think it's what he represents to her. I think
he's jealous, right? To some degree, he has a mission. He has something he's going to go fulfill.
Yes.
She doesn't, right? So she's kind of like, dang.
And he's a doer. Like, he doesn't sit around and wait and recruit people. Yeah. I think he is the physical manifestation of her perceived failure.
Wow.
And I think he walks away from her because she walks away from accountability. I don't have my saber, so I'm going to go home and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to stew, looking very unwarrior-like, right? And just giving up. She's got her little kingdom and no one is there. So who's the fool?
Interesting.
Yeah. Two quick things, one on Din and one on Bo. First of all, Bo almost it feels like how Darth Maul would sit on that Mandalorian throne, right?
Absolutely.
Just so
Yeah.
And it's almost the
nonchalant.
same exact pose.
Right?
It's probably not an accident.
Very true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great call.
And that says something, right, about that
sure
character.
does.
And then the other side of that is the supreme confidence that Din Djarin displays. He tells her, I'm going to Mandalore and I'm going to prove that it's not poisoned. And that changes everything for Mandalorians. If their home planet is somewhat hospitable and can build some type of habitat there, and he just says it straight out, I'm going there and I'm going to show that it's not poison, and walks away. And that I'm sure did not sit very well with her being in the state of mind she's in.
He's got this great thing that's this great humility about him. So I've actually done a lot of exploring about this through some religious things. And humility, this is a definition I've heard recently. I really like it. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Now
C.S. Lewis.
That is from C.S. Lewis. Very good. That a boy. And so it's not that he is thinking selfishly. I think he has purpose for getting his Mandalore way back. Maybe he thinks that's the only way he can properly guide his son. Maybe. Or maybe, again, that's just part of what he's been programmed to be since he was a kid. And I don't mean programming is a trite thing. I just mean like that's how he's been raised. I mean, we're all sort of programmed or educated or formed or shaped in our own way in our homes, in our schools, in our churches, in our faiths, and our whatever's. So it's going to be fun and fascinating to see kind of where this thing goes. We've talked a lot about this first episode, and I'm glad. I couldn't imagine two more fun people to have a cup of coffee with, guys. I think it's time to give our letter grades. We certainly let this conversation be our rubrics. Cory, let's start with you. What's your letter grade? And feel free to sort of explain it if you need to.
Sure. I mean, A+ for me. I'm excited Mando's back, season 3. We're going on more adventures, meeting new characters, meeting old characters. It's been a blast already, and it's only episode 1. And I always feel like Mando always keeps getting better and better as seasons go. And this is going to dip even further into the Star Wars pool, if you will, and be able to show us all kinds of angles I think we haven't seen before. I think Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are just enjoying this so much and just really dreaming up some great things that are built around Star Wars lore, Mandalorians, and just a way of presenting it to us that's just fun, enjoyable, and just really a knockout. And one gripe I do have of this episode would be that it feels like he has one mission. I'm going to go back to Mandalore and figure it out. But then all these little side missions pop up, and it's like, oh, well, I'll get IG-88 or IG-88, IG-11. Oh, he's broken. We got to go fix the thing, and we got to do this. And it's like, I mean, I feel like, okay, I hope that he doesn't get blocked about the main mission. He's doing these side missions. I feel like it's like a video game where it's like, okay, well, I know there's a main mission this way, but I can do these little side missions and just do that all day, and it feels like it's just a little filler. So I hope that we're just ramping into this basically, and we're building story. I expect that because we've seen that in the last 2 series. So that's what it felt like a little bit from this episode. But I mean, I'm okay with it for being episode 1, not episode 7, and we're still feeling this way. So
that's a good point. Well, in seasons 1 and 2, he does have some side missions, but they're all with the purpose of long game and using that, so he doesn't show up to the fight unprepared.
Sure, right.
But I totally get what you're saying. Colby, do you also have an A+, or what do you think?
Okay, so if you would indulge me,
yes,
because I know that this is a newer way of doing this, and it's a good way of doing this, but I also enjoyed when we would give our letter grade first and then see how it changed after the conversation.
Oh, good point.
Because that happened, and that started happening.
Doesn't yours change as we're talking, though? Like whatever you thought at the beginning, don't you find yourself adapting it a little bit organically?
Yes, good. and that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it, because okay, so this is what I'm going to do. After the episode ended, thrilled, loved it. I thought it was a fantastic setting of the table, ready to go. Mando's back, and we're going on another season-long adventure. I was super hyped, loved every second of it. My one critique is that there wasn't enough of it. I wanted, give me, of the first episodes, I think this was the shortest one. So, I'm just greedy. I want more. So my first initial thought was, this is a B+. this is a B plus. But it's really not a B plus because of all the things we've just spent an hour talking about. It's so layered. It's so complex. There's so much more. It's a transformer. There's more than meets the eye, right?
Yeah.
If you take the time to think about these things scene by scene, I'm going to bump it up to a solid A, where it would have been a B plus. So solid A. It was entertaining. It was engaging. It was fun. It provoked thought, and clearly it's provoked conversation. So I'm happy with that, with an A grade. So
Cory's was an A plus.
Yep.
Yours is an A. Mine is an A minus.
Okay.
How fun. I'm also going to give you a pedagogical rationale for why we throw the letter grade at the end now. When I'm filling out a rubric for something I'm grading, whether it's a project or an essay or what have you, I have certain notions about where I think the paper is going to go, and then I put it in my numbers and I evaluate, do the scale. By the time you get to the end of it, then sometimes it's a bit of a surprise. Oh, that's kind of how I thought it would go. Oh, no. But I find that the mapping out of the episode leads to your summation point. So that's kind of why, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting to me because I've graded things over the years, 5 stars or, grading scales. And I always think whenever you sit down to watch something, it always starts out as an A plus, right? Going in like A plus, I'm ready to go.
Really?
But then by the movie, as you're getting, or show or whatever have you, as you're going into it, you're going, okay, well, that didn't really work for me. Or that the character's no good. Oh, this isn't very good. Oh, I'm getting bored. Or the grade starts going down, right? So always, my manager always told me we'd grade each other. Like, and he said, if you couldn't give me a 10 all the time, then tell me why. Always come to me when you think it's not a 10 right now. Tell me what's the problem is, and I'll try to fix it. And it's really interesting that perspective, I guess, in grading somebody. But I always kind of thought through that too. It's like if I'm sitting down and why not give us an A plus in the get go?
I do like that. I like that, Cory, and I like what you're saying, Colby. Tom was like the biggest one at changing his grade, which is cool. Which I like that very much. The reason it's an A minus for me is that it's wonderful. I was happy. Yeah. I've watched it twice. I thought if I had to quibble, which I don't, the opening sequence probably could have been a little bit shorter to get more dialogue, but I don't really know what else they could say. I don't know what more Din Djarin could say to the armorer. So it gave us what we needed. It was very efficient in the storytelling. I thought it was very well done. And for me, and maybe this is just going to be how it's going to be for me forever, the rescue, the finale of season 2, that's the A plus of the A plus, the A plus. So it's not at that level for me. But it was really fun in and of its own, and it certainly whet my appetite, and I can't wait for more. I mean, there's zero doubt about that. It's absolutely delightful.
Do you take your favorite episode and kind of like that's the top one, and like, okay, I'm going to take the new episode and match it up against that one? Like, is that kind of the
not purposefully?
Okay.
No, that's a good point. A good question. I don't purposely do that, but I just sort of in my evaluation scheme.
That's fair.
I don't think everything has to be like the rescue, but if I say this is an A plus, but I say the rescue is an A plus, well, those are very different episodes.
Sure.
They're very different levels of pow.
And I expect
that's why.
I expect some of these episodes to be not all A pluses, right?
Yeah, which is fine.
Some fillers, some definitely.
I don't. I'm not a big filler guy, unless it's.
Well, I should say filler. I should say story, progression or character development. There's definitely going to be those times where he's, putting his ship back there because it just got blown up. Or like, oh, we really need to see this scene. But no, this is telling us that he's very technical dude. He knows his stuff, and he's all about it. So Jawas be gone. So
I'm interested that you said you pretty much start something assuming it's like at A.
And why not?
I never thought about this until just now.
Yeah.
I think I start everything at a C. And I'm just going
middle of the road.
And I can go here or I can go here.
It either goes up or goes down.
I start in the middle.
You know what I also found myself doing subconsciously today was comparing it to the previous premiere episodes of the previous seasons. Because for me, first of all, the first episode ever, they dropped this massive bomb on us at the end, right? And it just literally changes Star Wars.
Pop culture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and pop culture. And then the second one, they kill a crate dragon. I mean, that's one of the most
awesome,
incredible episodes of television and of that year, really. And I was so glad I went back and rewatched things because I got to watch that episode again, and just the whole introduction of Cobb Vanth and the armor aspect, and then to finish it off with this. That episode looked so gorgeous. Just the production value on that was incredible. This episode is very different from both of those, but it succeeds in what it needs to do, because I keep hearing Favreau and Filoni sort of talking about the scope of this season, and the other two seasons were very direct, right? Din is on a mission for Grogu. This one seemed, that mission is accomplished. That is in the past now, and it seems like we are going to be heading in a different direction, and I think this episode set it up superbly.
I like season 1 is finding self, season 2 is finding fatherhood, season 3 is finding spirituality. That's sort of what it seems like we've got here.
Interesting.
I'm here for it.
Well, Favreau said he's got season 4 ready to go too. So
that's right.
Yeah. The scripts are written.
We shall see what transpires.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are, with Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is yes.
This entire coffee chat was wonderful, of course, because I got the 2 C's with me. Cory, always great to chat with you, buddy. Of course, we chat every week on CWK Pour-Over. If you're a member of the CWK Alliance, which is our Patreon page, we get exclusive content. You get to hear me, Cory, and Tom talking every week. This week, we talked about our behind-the-scenes stuff. And the show come this weekend is a fun one that you came up with. We answer questions from the world of Stephen Colbert.
That's right.
None of them are political. They're all silly.
Oh, they're just fun. Yeah,
they're fun. But it's always fun to talk with you. Appreciate it, man. Please let everybody know where they can find you out in the interwebs.
In their webs, yes. If you feel like you've got a thought about the Mandalorian and you want to tell me about it, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter at Cory Clubb, CoryClubb, double B's. I'm out there doing my thing. Feel free to reach out and let me know what you think. And you can email me if you want to, CoryC@coffeewithkenobi.com, there to maybe put together a longer thought if you want to.
Absolutely. And Colby, of course, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the Colby Cast. I don't know that you're going to find too many podcasts that are as sincere, as insightful, and as joyful, and just as pleasant to listen to and be a part of than the Colby Cast. And all that comes from you, brother, and your awesome family. So please let everybody know where they can find you and the Colby Cast.
Well, I thank you, Dan, for those words. It means a lot to me because, it's my 2 boys and I, my 2 early 20 boys and I, just sort of chit-chatting, and we put it out there for people to enjoy. So we can find the Colby Cast on Twitter and Instagram at the Colby Cast. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter also at crosschecked3, the number 3. And my 2 boys and I said that we just did a Ant-Man episode. We're trying to figure out how we're going to cover The Last of Us, The Bad Batch, and The Mandalorian all through March, but we're going to figure out a way. We're going to do it. We've been talking about The Bad Batch and The Last of Us on sort of team-up episodes over the last few weeks, and it's just a blast to sit there and get their early 20-something perspective on things from my point of view, and I know a lot of people enjoy that aspect of it. So thank you for your kind words, and we always try to keep things fun and positive. And as my youngest, Luke, says, he enjoys things that move the needle forward. So, and I enjoy when we sort of sit and ruminate on things. I don't mind spending time with characters. So it's sort of a fun dynamic. And then Caleb, he just sits there and sort of says, what's wrong with both of you? So it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun.
It's always a great listen. Speaking of great listens, I'm sure you've heard, if not, I was very fortunate to be a part of a small group of select other podcasts as we did a roundtable, and I talked with Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Rick, who's the director of this episode, Faramigua, is that how you say his last name, I believe? And then Katie Sackhoff as well. You can see the video on Coffee with Kenobi's YouTube channel of just my portion of those conversations, and the full audio with all the other podcasts, including Full of Sith and Sky Talkers and Fangirls Going Rogue and Father Son podcasts. I think that's everybody. It's great to be a part of, and I hope that you will check it out and enjoy it. And please get your top 5 ready for not only this, but the newest episode of the Bad Batch. That episode is Metamorphosis. So we're going to have 2 top 5s next week. I'm going to be sure to drink lots of hot tea with lemon and get my voice properly lubricated so I can share both top 5s with each and every one of you. Next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. On behalf of myself, Colby, and Cory, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us for a cup of coffee. And remember, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.